Hey everyone, I am here once again with my buddy James here in Montana, and we are going to be doing some more talking about AKs. And in this video, we're going to be talking about your kind of top 5, so to speak, AKs, or at least countries of import that are worth noting. The AK, I'll let you talk about a little bit of the history of the importation of AKs into the U.S. because it's been kind of rocky. There are things going on now that we didn't have to deal with before. There were things before that we don't have to deal with now, like the ban era. Talk a little bit about what has come into the country over time.
All right, so the very first one was the Mahdi, the Steyr Mahdi, and that's the one that everyone's probably familiar with from the movie Red Dawn. Basically, the most accurate representation of the Russian AKM. And then from there, it kind of opened up the floodgates. So we got a bunch of Chinese pre-bans. There were several variants in there, and they're highly collectible. Mm-hmm. The Steyr Mahdi is expensive. Any of those Chinese pre-bans are expensive, highly collectible, very desirable. Chinese are probably arguably the highest quality ones there are. And then there was like a Hungarian pre-ban in there. There were a few other variants, but really the Steyr Mahdi opened up the floodgate of bringing AK into America. And over the years, we've gotten Russia, Bulgaria, Germany, Poland, probably missed some in there, but Yugo. Mm-hmm. And really in the last, I'm going to say, I mean, don't quote me on the years, but at least in the last 5 years, sure. You've got Romanians and Yugos and Polish really is kind of what's left. Yeah. I think that, the Russian stuff kind of got shut down during the Obama administration, and it's just drying up. It's going away. All of it's going away.
Even countries that don't have import restrictions with just different global goings on, the number of them coming into the country have slowed down significantly.
Significantly, yeah. And a lot of countries, some of those old comm block countries aren't comm block anymore, and so they've switched to other calibers or other platforms. Even Bulgaria is a good example. They've clung to the AK pattern, but they've been switching to 5.56 mm-hmm. and kind of just really messing it up, I guess, if you ask me. But you're seeing a lot less of that kind of stuff. So there are really good, beautiful, high-quality, collectible AKs still in this country, and there's still a lot of great kits out there. The price is skyrocketing as more and more people are figuring out that that game is over, mm-hmm. and Americans, we're the type of people, you tell us we can't have something, that's what we want. Yeah. So as more and more people figure out that it's over, more and more people become AK people, just like that.
Yeah, I mean, and just from my own experience, in preparation for coming out here, I knew, well, this guy builds AKs. Maybe I should buy a parts kit and we can put together an AK while I'm here. And I remember, I've heard stories when parts kits with a barrel were $100. The Chinese parts kits and, or Romanian parts kits. And then I remember, okay, you could get a pretty decent like Romy kit for like $250 with furniture and all that. You just need to buy a barrel and receiver. I looked a couple months before coming out here. Even the worst parts kits you can find are $500-$600, mm-hmm. and you have to still buy a barrel, buy a receiver, and then still rivet the whole thing together or weld. It's.
So the Romanian G series, which is their patriotic guard, it's kind of like when they outfitted their civilians with rifles, essentially, in case they got invaded. Those were very plentiful. They were built. There's a semi-auto rifle, very plentiful kits that came into this country. I mean, hundreds of thousands. These things are super plentiful, and were always very, very low priced. Easy kits to get into if you wanted to get into an AK. That was like a starting point place to get a solid kit to build off of. And I think yesterday or 2 days ago, I saw one go for $900 just for the kit. You still need the barrel and receiver, and you still need to build it. So if it gives you an idea, and that's, at the time we're filming this, so, in the next couple months, couple years, I have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah, and like the big difference is, we're in a huge bubble right now as far as gun prices. But the imported stuff is kind of in its own bubble. It's not going to go back down, right? Because if there's not more coming in, it's like with the Russian guns with their import bans or the Chinese guns with their import bans. They were expensive going into this mess, and they've only gotten more expensive. They're not going to go back down because there's not more coming into the country.
Yeah, and the thing that's interesting about that is a lot of the AK gun scare isn't related to this gun scare that's been going on. We've had this kind of interesting dynamic this time around where it's driven by this COVID pandemic pandemic, whatever you want to call it. And it's also driven by political, adjustments that, typically drive it. So you've got like this interesting dynamic over here, but really I think the AK stuff that's going on, the drying up of parts kits, the disappearance of mags and all the unique, things over the time, these prices are driving really because that stuff's just literally drying up.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's even so much driven by this other thing going on. And because this other thing is going on, people are looking for anything they can get their hands on. So it's just really a weird time, and I'm not sure where it goes from here, but yeah, that's kind of where we're at.
So with that depressing note, let's go ahead and jump into the top 5 here. First, any particular order to this top 5?
Yeah, let's try. I'll try to. I may have it wrong, but we'll go from number 5 to number 1.
Okay.
And this is, I'm not going to specifically pick models here. A lot of times in these, like especially with Chinese, you get like 2 demographics of AK from these countries. You've got the ones that they built as military guns for the military, and then you've got ones that were built specifically for export to countries like the United States. So when I kind of do this, I'm just referring to the country really as like what I like that country better than this country. I'm just going to rank my top 5 countries, and I'll give you kind of some of the reasons why, I guess. So.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, so number 5.
All right, let's.
Do you insert a drum roll sound here? How does this work?
I mean, I guess we could, or the sound of. Does AK full auto fire sound like drum roll?
Sure, yeah, you can make it sound like a drum roll.
We'll figure it out.
Oh gosh.
All right, so I'll let him go ahead and grab his number 5. And while he does that, I will say that, like he's saying with the Chinese guns being made for different demographics, like the Chinese were making 5.56 AKs. The Chinese military was not using 5.56 AKs. They were making that specifically for the U.S. market because, like you said, with the Egyptian stuff, once people found out there was a market for AKs in America, especially the Chinese jumped in and said, well, hey, let's start selling guns in America. So what
okay, I'm having a hard time with number 5, but I'm just going to go, Polish at number 5. So I have here a Polish underfolder. I particularly have I'm more of a thick stock guy when it comes to AKs, but I respect them all. I think they're all unique, and underfolders are super cool. If you're collecting AKs, definitely probably need an underfolder in your collection. So that's how this happened. I needed an underfolder, and so this was the way. Now, I particularly like this specific one because it was one of my first that I built, and it was under direction. It was with John at M13 Industries, actually. Shout out to John. But very cool piece. Reason I like Polish AKs is they're just high quality. The parts, if you take like their bare bones parts kits and you lay it next to some of the other countries, especially like the Balkans countries and stuff, the finish is just cleaner. It's more refined. And when you go to build the gun, you kind of notice some of these things. So, Polish are just known for their good quality parts, and they're also still available. WBP has fired up, and there's new production Polish parts kits available. They're still coming into the country. So if you're looking for a quality parts to build off of, that's nice to know you can do it. But yeah, if you look up Polish guns, they're always quality.
Yeah.
This is a Circle 11, or we call it Circle 11, Oval 11 on the trunnion. So
which is radome?
Radome, yeah. If you're looking for, when you're looking through gun shows and stuff and you see an oval with an 11 in it, that's Polish. You probably can't go wrong there. Just make sure everything else checks out and numbers are matching and all that good stuff, and probably do a video on what to look for. But I got Poland as my number 5 country. Okay. And I'll set that one aside.
Cool. And so before he gets on to his next one, with that, you do have to be careful with the radome or however it's pronounced. There are other AKs being made in that city that are not the Oval 11 military guns. They're just using the name of the city to kind of get some of that street cred. They are not the same as the military factory Polish guns. So you do have to be careful of that. There are some really low quality guns coming in from Poland that say radome on the side, but it won't have that Circle 11, so make sure you look for that.
I did mention a minute ago, too, referencing China, about the guns built for the military, guns built for civilian export. When you get parts kits like this, these were military guns, and you'll see this a lot with Romanian kits and stuff like that. The military kits, they're built as a military rifle. You've got to depopulate it all and then build it as your rifle. It's good to know, because if you do find these kits or purchase any of these kits, you're getting a gun that was built to go to war, and that's pretty cool. So when you see those trunnion markings, you've got a military kit. You're just building yourself a personal rifle out of it. So.
Yeah. All right. So what do we got here, number 4?
Okay, number 4. Now the reason I didn't put this as number 5 because I think they're pretty damn close. Was just because I know that you're, this is your thing. Yeah. So I went with Bulgaria as number. I better keep it up here for you. I went with Bulgaria as number 4. This is was an Arsenal SLR 107 side folder. I'd switched it to the triangle, and then when these things were being sold by Arsenal, and this has been a while now, they were, they had that polymer furniture. I really have a thing for the classics, so I searched around and eventually got some nice Bulgarian bakelite to put on it and kind of restore it to that Bulgarian look. So I've got my nice waffle in there. You'll see these with the concentric circle 10 logo. Bulgarians are known for their high quality, again, just like Poland with the fit and finish. Some little advancements, they do the little 90-degree gas block. They got the unique muzzle device on them. And again, they do the side folder. They a lot of times have this side rail. Bulgarians are just good guns. There's nothing more to say about that. I've had a couple Bulgarians, and they seem to always have just one rivet, not to my standard for some reason. So this particular one, I had to redo the rear trunnion on it, just because I'm kind of picky like that, and it wasn't so much of a collector piece that it was going to devalue it. So that's why I don't have it necessarily higher. A lot of people probably put Bulgaria higher, but they are a high quality AK, and you can't go wrong with it. This thing is also fairly overgassed, and so I would, I like to put my Polish above it, but
all right. But out of respect for me, and I appreciate
out of respect for you, and I did build that one, so I know that it's not a fair comparison on the gas system. If Poland would have built that, maybe we could have a better comparison. But Bulgarians are great guns. If you get a chance to get your hands on one, you will not be disappointed. So.
Yeah. The 2 AKs that I predominantly have in 7.62 are the Arsenal, Circle 10 guns. Then I have my 5.45 AK-74 that was a Bulgarian kit. And I'm not going to lie, I have had little things with each of them, specifically the Arsenal made guns, like my SLR 107 FR had a front sight post that was so canted I couldn't zero it. That had to get sent back for repair. And yeah, there are usually like 1 or 2 rivets that are like not quite there.
Not as pretty.
But fit and finish generally is good compared to a lot of the other stuff coming in. Although the availability on those has dried up a lot and the price has gone up a lot. Things you have to pay attention to: 24mm threads on those versus your standard 14x1 left-hand thread. So there are going to be some things you have to take into consideration if you want to get one to do modernization, so to speak, which we have a video on. Yeah, they have a soft spot in my heart.
They also they're not known for their paint. They do a paint over park, but it's like some sort of appliance paint or something. I don't know, but
doesn't hold heat well.
If you're looking to get it and do, like you said, modernization, repaint it or do some unique stuff, just know you're in for a party when it comes time to stripping that. But and this one's already been redone. But when we mention the fit and finish of the parts, we're talking just the machine work. Yeah. I mean, they're not. There's some pretty crude stuff out there you'll see when you start looking at some of the other countries, and the Bulgarian and Polish they're pretty clean.
Yeah, so cool. All right, so what do we got at number 3?
Number 3, okay. Number 3 I don't actually have. I have the parts kits. They're just not built out yet, so this is going to be a placeholder. Yeah, so I'm going with Russia as number 3. So for this, I've got a nice little Krink clone. This one was built off of a Yugo M92 PAP. And turned into the Russian Krink. Of course, those are typically 5.45. I'm running 7.62, so that's why I built it off this. But anyways, Russia has to be towards the top of the list. I mean, they started this thing, and sometimes you just don't know which bottle of vodka the Russian got into when they make certain things. But all in all, Tula or Ishmash, if you have a chance at anything with any other markings on it, you jump on that right away. Russian guns are, when it comes to AKs, that's where it's at. The wood's beautiful on them. They're just,
they literally set the standard.
They set the standard. Yeah. They did it. It's it. And they're generally, quality themselves, and you've got, cool markings, cool history. They got all the inspection stamps. Everything about them's cool. It doesn't matter what it is. If they got a scratch on them, somebody put it there and it's got a story, and that's what you want. That's what you're buying. So, yeah, if you get a chance at Russia. And the thing is with Russian, little secret, pro tip, there's kits available right now. You're going to pay, but they're available. There's some companies that still have them. They're sitting on pretty good piles of them. And if you want them, now's the time.
Yeah, they're not going to get cheaper.
And when they're gone, they're gone. The stuff's not coming in no more. The other thing with Russia is just the extras, Bakelite mags.
Yeah.
The highest quality mag you can get. I mean, that's where it's at. So.
And it's also worth mentioning at this point, this is the first country now that we're talking about that actually has a current import ban. So there are no new Russian guns coming into the country. What's here is here, which is one of the reasons the price is going up on them. But they're not getting any cheaper. And like you said, if you're going to buy one and you don't have one, the sooner the better, because again, they're only going to go up from here.
So about 6 months ago, I picked up two Russian AK kits for $850 each kit. I looked this morning; they're $1150. That's in the last 6 to 8 months. So give you an idea. And that's at the time we're filming this. By the time you're watching this, it's probably $5,000. I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so we're on number 2.
Number 2.
Number 2. Some of you might be disappointed in my choice here.
I mean, I think there's going to be some people who are already disappointed that Russia wasn't number 1.
I know. But I'm going off of. I'm not. This is my list, guys.
Yeah.
And I'm not necessarily going off of like collector-ish, although I am jaded on that. I'm kind of going off of more quality in their production and innovation. Of course, Russia for innovation, they came up with the dang thing. But this is my list, dang it. And you put me on the spot by making me rank them. I wasn't going to do that.
Well, okay, here we go.
So number 2, East German. All right, East German's got to be, I mean, they got to be in the top 3. I mean, maybe I got Russia wrong here, but Germany is... that's just cool. They're just cool. These kits, when I built this one, I got this kit for $450. And I should have bought them all. I had no idea. This was not long ago.
Yeah.
I want to be real. This was not long ago. When I picked up this kit, it was I was just like, oh yeah, they got East German. Cool, I'll get one of those. Those are super cool. And within about a week or 2, the kit was gone. They weren't available anymore. And now these things are... just people want them.
Yeah.
What's neat about the East Germans, of course, you see right away, you got the polymer upper handguard, polymer grip that's just really kind of unique with the texture, and then the pebble stock, we call it. These guys tried to make the thing lighter. They, right away, you know, anytime German engineers get their hands on things, they try to innovate and make it better. They went with the lighter, ways to lighten it as fast as they could. They even did it on the lower handguard and figured out with the 7.62 that it just gets too hot, and they went right back to the wood. So you've got kind of this mismatched thing going, which is really cool. You know, German engineers, man. Yeah. And then they're, of course, high quality. All the parts are always high quality with German. Some of these came blued, some of them came paint over park. I'm actually thinking about going back and doing this in blued because I think it'd just be cool. But and then they got into the AK-74 market pretty hard too, so those have the polymer lower, and they have a lot of neat mags and stuff that go with them. So I don't know. What are your thoughts? I think East German's got to be in the top 3.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a whole lot of a direct experience with the East German AKs other than handling a couple of them. I think, as you said, anytime Germany has been on the forefront of firearms development for almost a century now, and probably longer than that if I were to give them full credit. And like you said, once they get their hands on something, they're taking an existing design and just doing what they can to improve upon it for pure functionality, and they don't care about the aesthetics as much. I mean, the fact that you have guns like the MG42 still effectively in use today, and things like the MG3, they're going to do a good job with it. So I think that's a fair place for it.
All right. We're down to number 1.
All right, number 1. And again, we ordered these, but these may not be in any particular order. So, you know, hopefully we're not offending people too much. But I think that what you have for number 1, if you're watching this video so far, since we haven't talked about this country, I think you know what country's coming up next.
Yeah, if you're an AK person, you know what I'm about to say, but I'm going to grab it. Now this one is kind of a bit of a placeholder also, but we're going Chinese for number 1. And this is probably my holy grail of Chinese here, but You'll probably notice right away it is a milled one. What I wanted to talk about on Chinese, first and foremost, was just their innovation. This is an early Chinese. When they went to the stamped version, they actually changed the placement of the rivets on the front trunnion, and that was probably their biggest innovation and modification to the platform. You know, we talk about some of these countries all kind of putting their little twist on it to make it better. Theirs was redoing those trunnion placements, and really what they actually did was take, let me grab this one. They really just took this second rivet on the front trunnion and they dropped it. And their engineers figured out something in the science there. Brian, you should ask him about this, he might know more. But it has something to do with the amount of power and pressure that's hitting on that magwell. And they found it to be better. They also used a thicker receiver. All these receivers are 1 millimeter, the Chinese a 1.5 millimeters. And so they kind of did their little innovations to make the gun stronger, to make it better, more reliable, last longer, be able to take more abuse. This one, like I say, is a milled. When it comes to Chinese, they're just, I'm gonna point that away from you there.
Sure.
The Chinese are just high quality. All of them are blued finishes, which, you know, it's a bigger process, but it's more quality. They just do everything better. And it's hard for us to believe in America. I know when these things first started coming into the country, you know, people were looking for that Vietnam AK look, and a lot of Americans were like, commie gun, no. And you also see Chinese and you think, made in China, Chinese garbage. The reason that China sells so much stuff to Americans is because we buy it. We love Chinese garbage. They can actually make good stuff though, and they're the best in the world at copying people. So when it comes to copying the AK, who's the best at it, you know? So those are my thoughts on Chinese. Chinese guns are absolutely when it comes to the AK, they're the highest quality. I don't think there's an argument there. They also ported the gas tube instead of the gas block. There's just little refinements that they did that just made the gun subtly better, and fit and finish. You can't even argue. I think anybody who really gets their hands on the AKs would agree the Chinese AK is by far the highest quality. And then of course the most obvious mod they're known for is the spike bayonet that's built in and integrated. We call them the spiker. Not all Chinese guns had that, but that's, you know, it's a nice piece of kit. You got everything right there if you need it. So
and I think that goes to one of the things that I like about the Chinese AKs is how many different types of AKs. Like when someone talks about a Chinese AK, probably everyone you talk to has a different picture pop into their head of a different configuration, because you've got the spikers, you've got the double underfolders, you've got just the standard thumb hole band era stocks. You know, you've got such a wide swath that's covered by the Chinese AKs. That,
they got into a lot. They have several, I mean, they have more factories than anybody else that I know of. So when it comes to factory marks, you've got a lot of little, you know, unique things you can look for that have different values associated with them. All of these are extremely high value. Like you're gonna, if you have one, you're sitting on a good pot of money comparatively to other AKs. And they just got all these unique little things: the hooded front sight, the ribbed barrel, some are spikers, some aren't, the ported gas tubes, milled versus stamped. I mean, they got into all of it. They did it all. And you know, plus they had the military guns and the civilian export guns. You had Norinco exporting, you had Polytech exporting. All of them are high value. There's none of these that are, I don't think you're gonna probably find, at the time we're filming this, I don't think you're gonna find a Chinese AK for under 2,000. If you do, call me. You know, this particular one, just seeing how we're here, is a battlefield pickup from Vietnam. It is a Reweld. You can barely see the welds. You'd have to really look. It's a beautiful piece, a lot of patina on it, and yeah, just it's a unique one. It was built for the Vietnamese military, so it is an export gun, but it was never meant to be here, which makes it really cool and gives it that unique, you know, story and soul that you're looking for when you get into the collector side of the pieces. So
yeah, and really briefly, since you mentioned rewelding, some people watching might not be familiar with what that is. So can you just touch on what a reweld is real quick?
So yeah, I'll take the mag out here. Basically, on these Type 3 guns, these milled guns, you know, they're machine guns. They're military guns or military rifles from battlefields, and to import them into the United States, they can't come in. They're machine guns. So what they do is they cut them in half. A lot of times it's through the magwell, sometimes it's twice through magwell, and they cut the back end off. And of course they pull the parts when they do it, so it's the receiver that's cut. And if they're, depending on how they're cut, if they're cut in the right places, they can be welded back together. It's a thick machined receiver, so you can clamp it in all the right places, and if you know what you're doing, you can bring them back to life, refinish them, and
obviously in a semi-auto configuration, unless you have the proper licensing.
Yeah. So, and actually, it's funny you mentioned that. So, if that is your thing, the very first thing you have to do is fill the hole before you can actually clamp them together. Because as soon as they're clamped, that's technically intent.
Yeah.
So but yeah, it's really fun. It's neat to see them come back to life when you get these pieces, and you can expect on some of these Type 3s to pay well over $5,000 just for the metal.
Yeah.
There's a Russian ones pop up from time to time. PLO capture guns to pop up, and yeah, that's if you're the type of AK person that wants to drink the fine wine, and you envision yourself sitting in a library sipping on a quality beverage with your high quality AK next to you, that's the shit you're looking for right there.
Yeah. And with all the top three here, obviously, like I said, we already touched on Russian guns are not being imported anymore. With East Germany guns,
gone.
It's not even a country anymore. So what exists, period, is what exists.
China's not coming in.
China's were banned before Russian guns, which is one of the reasons why that AK market has spiked. And then also, as you said, when they first came in, people didn't respect them, and now everyone wants a Chinese AK because they realized they're legit military guns that were being sold here in the U.S. So as far as quality goes, it's awesome. And now, one thing that I think is worth touching on with some of these guns is pre-ban and like post-ban stuff, because a lot of times they're being converted here in the country to a more modern configuration from the Sporter configuration they came in, and depending on who was doing that conversion, they might have taken a really great gun and then just kind of butchered it. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think, when you're looking at import guns, at this point, unless you're finding one that's already butchered, you want it in the most original configuration you can and keep them classic like this. If you happen on a gun that's already modified in any way, it's devalued. Mm-hmm. If you get it at the devalued price, it's fine.
Yeah.
And like, I know some guys that are looking at doing things like the Occam handguard, or modifying a gun in a way that it's a fighter, and they know that Chinese guns are extremely high quality. So if you stumble on a Mac 90, mm-hmm. which isn't as desirable as a pre-ban Chinese, but it's a high quality gun and still drives a very nice price tag. If you find one that somebody's modified, trying to restore it, got rid of the thumbhole stock, but they threw whatever on it, and it's got some, Gucci handguard, and things are already kind of messed up, and you're able to get it for a steal.
Yeah. Well,
there you go. You've got a great, foundation. Purists are still going to look at it and be like, oh, why did you do that to a Mac 90? But you got it like that. You just made it, you properly configured it for a fighting gun, mm-hmm. So I think you can get really nice, foreign guns to build off of, which is, unless you're buying something like an Occam rifle, I'd recommend that. You're not going to find the quality without, and I would caution anybody when it comes to this stuff to really find out who's building it before you buy it, and inspect certain things.
And we're actually going to be doing a video talking about what to look for in an AK, so definitely stay tuned for that. I don't know what the order of these postings are going to be or what the gap is, but we're going to be doing a video talking about things to look at when you are investing in an AK. So if it is someone who used a kit and you see all these markings from the military factories, okay, that's great, but here's other things you need to pay attention to see, was it brought into the country that way, or are they just putting these on their really crappy home builds and then trying to charge you a bunch of money for it? So we'll be covering all that kind of stuff. But we talked about your 5 favorite countries, AK manufacturers. There's obviously other decent ones out there.
Yeah.
Romania,
Hungary, Yugoslavian, Egyptian. These are all very, very popular, and I like them also. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not picking on them by not putting them in this. You just give me 5 to go off of it. Yeah, I have a Steyr Modi. Mm-hmm. It's one of my babies. Mm-hmm. First one to come in. I love it. But if we're talking quality, I have to go. Yeah. Maybe the video is wrong. I went with just my top 5 based on quality alone, not collector value or just which ones I really have a fetish for. But you know, the Egyptians tend to have like some, you know, cruder machining. Romanians,
they're
rough.
They work, but
they're crude. They're crude. They're rough,
unrefined,
and they're really plentiful still.
Mm-hmm.
You can get, they're great parts kits. They're great. They're quality. It's a cruder finish.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, if you're looking for parts kits, Romanians are great ones to get your hands on right now because they're still available, but they're also drying up.
Mm-hmm.
I like them. Yugoslavia, there's like a following for those. Mm-hmm. There's like an AK demographic that's their thing. I respect them. I like them. It's not my thing.
Sure.
They did a lot of modification, like Chinese. Like, I can't say I don't like Yugoslavian because they modified the platform and it's like almost too much away from the AK, because the Chinese did the same thing. I love Chinese. It wouldn't be fair. Right. But they did innovations and put their own twist on it, and they're very unique. There's a
shortening the safety lever so you can rack around out with the safety on and unload the gun without taking it off.
You know, and they got like a bulged trunnion. They did that little hold open. You know, they did like unique things. Their receiver's different. They're cool in their own regard too. And you know, any of those Balkans countries, you can get a lot of battlefield pickup stuff for them. So there's really unique trench art out there for the Yugo stuff. You just gotta search around, but you know.
But before we close this out, are there countries you think are worth avoiding?
Am I gonna get in trouble?
Well, I have a feeling I know where this is going.
Am I gonna get in trouble?
It's up to you. If you don't want to talk about it, we don't have to talk about it. I have a feeling I know.
On YouTube, you can like go back after it's uploaded and like cut a tail off.
Yeah.
America.
Okay.
And I'm gonna get in trouble. I'm sorry. Look, we're gonna get there.
Yeah.
And I don't fault. I don't. There's no. That does not a don't take that negative.
Yeah.
Every one of these countries took 10 years to get it right.
Right.
We just started.
Not to mention, and this is something I try to talk a lot about when I talk about American AKs, is the funding to manufacture the facilities. It was state funded. So they're not necessarily worried about turning a profit. They're worried about creating a military infrastructure to outfit their militaries. That's not what's happening here in the U.S. You know, the U.S. government isn't going to certain companies and saying, here's $2 billion, go build an AK factory. So it's these private entities trying to build this infrastructure themselves while still trying to do it at a price point where Americans will buy them. And it's going to take time.
I think that's the biggest thing here with the United States is we want cheap shit and we want a lot of it. Mm-hmm. We want to buy a gun, and then we want to go back to the store in a week or two and we get paid again. We want to buy another gun. Yeah. We don't want to invest the rest of our money in training. We don't want to invest it in things to make us better. We want either another gun or more shit to put on that gun, mm-hmm. or more gear. We want to modify it. We want to get it and we want to change something. So naturally, what we get rewarded with in this country is companies popping up everywhere to make the shit we actually want to buy because capitalism. So when you look at like AKs, if you really want to see advancements and you want to see quality-driven results in this country, then when the companies that are coming out making the quality stuff make something quality, we need to buy it. Mm-hmm. We need to support it. And what you're seeing, it's very interesting. There are some companies in this country that make some really good parts, pieces, and even rifles. Mm-hmm. And you see all the time people complain about the price. Yeah. What do you expect? If you want a $600 rifle, you're going to get a $600 rifle. Mm-hmm. But don't trust your life to it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I think it's also worth saying too that Americans were spoiled with really cheap, high quality AKs early on because after the fall of the Soviet Union, everything is just being liquidated. The guys selling AKs to the importers weren't the guys who had to pay to build those, so they didn't care anything they sold it for was profit. Right. So you were buying $200 Chinese AKs, really cheap Russian AKs. We don't have that here, and those guns were not that cheap to produce even over there with the state-funded facilities. Right. So we got spoiled with this idea that AKs are cheap. Well, and to build a good one, it's not a cheap process. To make these
parts kits, all these parts came from places where labor's cheap.
Yeah.
In the United States, we don't have that. We got people that want $15 an hour for doing nothing. Well, what does that cost? Yeah. What is the production at? So if you see a rifle that's $700, where did they cut the corners to make that money? And the really telltale for you is to go build an AK. Find out what it takes to build. Take an AK build class. Yeah. If I've done several. If I build an AK, I'm a solid day, probably a day and a half with finishing into it. I mean, what is time worth?
Right.
And so if you add that up and you have employees doing that, plus you got to buy the parts and the pieces, and you got the supply cost, the cost of goods, the cost of production. How do you sell it for $600 or $700 and make a profit? Where is the corner being cut that's fattening it up, that the company can be a company and not a hobby? So when you see a $2,000 AK, it's a $2,000 AK.
Yeah. And it's also not like, again, we've mentioned in a previous video that we did together, building an AR is like assembling Legos. You can literally have unskilled labor do it okay, as long as there's some level of quality control going into it. It is skilled labor to build AKs. Again, we have this weird mindset in America that they're just hammering them out in caves, and like Jim Fuller said, you can build an AK poorly and it'll still run because it's such a good design. But when you're getting good AKs, it's legitimately skilled labor that's doing it. So it again, not cheap. Anyway, I think we've beat that horse pretty well to death. Before we close out, I do want to say that James is affiliated with a company called Factory 47. You guys have seen me wear this shirt all the time. So if you are a fan of one of these guns or from a country that we have already mentioned, the Factory 47 makes a bunch of the swag, so like shirts with the Egyptian logo on it, the man on the moon for Hungary, the Circle 10 logos, the Russian Ishmash or Saigas or anything else like that logos. So if you want to rep your favorite country of origin, or if we left you off the list, you can definitely rep that stuff. You guys have like the tumblers, shirts, hoodies. I bought a Romanian hoodie for my boss at work because he's into Romanian AKs. So definitely check that stuff out. I'll have more of what James is doing down in the comment section or in the description down below. So definitely check out the stuff that he's doing. He's got some pretty cool stuff going on, and we're actually in his podcast studio, which will hopefully be up and running.
Yeah, I gotta get this going.
Eventually. So anyway, if you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, throw those in the comment section down below. If you have your own top 5 list, feel free to throw those down there as well. We'll probably ignore it though, because this is the real top 5. But go ahead and throw those down below. But anyway, as always, I hope you got something out of this video, and I really appreciate you watching.
Okay, so we're doing top 5?
Top 5.
Okay, it's gonna start with. Is it weird if I swivel around and grab them while we're doing this?
No.
Bulgaria,
I think so.
Polish.
I'll do some show tune style stuff to distract people.
Russia, GDR, and then China. So Egypt, you're just not even in this video, bitch. Oh. You poor girl. We love you. You go back over here.
What you could say is like, this is where we started here in the U.S., but now we have access to.
Remember how I named all my. This is Cleopatra. She can sit there with Dorina for a minute.
No, if she's Cleopatra, I want to be Mark Antony.
Okay. You met Kim downstairs.
Oh,
Kim Jong.
Kim? Okay.
Yeah, Kim Jong.
What was it was Kim Il Sung.
Kim Jong
was the
Kim
first.
Jong Il.
Oh yeah, Kim Il Sung was the first one.
That was the grandpa.
Yeah, and then John Il, and now.
Kim Jong Il and Kim
Jong Un is the current
Kim Jong Un. Yeah. And then Kim Song is a sister or something like that. She's the next one.
Yeah. Because there was that period of time where everyone thought that he died, or was like gonna die, and everyone's like talking about his sister. And I'm like, that'd be interesting.
That will be interesting. She looks mean. Okay.
She looks like.
I'm glad we're not recording I'm glad I noticed we're recording because I almost said something really dirty. I was like, oh, fuck,
I think we're all thinking it.
Okay, cool.
All right. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
All right.